Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Scrap Empire. My name is Zach Hayes, and today we're going to be talking about this upcoming bout for UFC Fight Night, this upcoming Saturday. That's Clay Guida against Mark the Olympian Madsen. Clay Guida, very experienced guy in the UFC. And we also have Mark Madsen. Mark Madsen is a two-time Olympic silver medalist. Just turned pro a couple of years ago, and his wrestling background is tremendous. Right? The guy's eager to fight. He's fighting with enthusiasm, and he's really, really strong for a wrestler, which grants him the ability to not only have takedown defense against guys who, from a superficial aesthetic standpoint, may seem stronger than him, but he's also very aggressive with the ability to strike pretty decent. He doesn't have top tier level striking, but it's decent enough for him to last fights. Now, there's a fight that Mark Madsen had against someone he was fighting on Cage Warriors. I believe his first name is Tibet. When Mark Madsen fought on Cage Warriors, go on UFC Fight Pass, and on the bottom left corner you'll see the video that I'm talking about, right? And also when he fought Danilo Del Rio, I believe that's his last name. Well, for that fight ended in the first. When he fought Danilo, Mark Madsen, that fight ended in the first round. Right, with Mark Madsen getting near the cage, being able to just drop him down, being able to just drop him down with using his strength, and just able to take control of everything, take control of the tempo, take control of just take control of the tempo throughout the fight, and just able to punch him and technically knock him out. Now let me get back to this fight that he had on Cage Warriors. Right, this was a very, very, very interesting matchup, only because the guy who Mark Madsen fought, he seemed. It wasn't that he was just as strong as Mark Madsen. It's the fact that he was able to last 3 rounds with him, number one. Mark Madsen, you have to be extremely, extremely careful, only because he's an Olympian, a very experienced Olympian, representing his country in wrestling. So the guy's strong, the guy has power, the guy has experience at the amateur and professional level, right? Within the first 2 rounds, Mark Madsen was coming in. He had his hands up, right? Had his hands up, throwing his strikes, and that's another that he impressed me. He's somebody that I would put on the same level as Danny Cormier on those UFC fighters that always impress me, right? Because yes, they're wrestlers, or even somebody like the gentleman who Francis Ngannou just fought to win the UFC title a couple months ago. Yes, you have the ability to wrestle. Yes, that's your main martial art. However, you still have the ability to stand up, right? I remember watching a fight with Danny Cormier against the former UFC champion, right? And yeah, even though Danny Cormier got knocked out, right, he was still landing shots, landing shots through striking, you know, even when he fought John Jones, it wasn't like the entire fight that he had John Jones on the ground. No, even though John Jones beat Danny Cormier, he was landing those strikes effectively. He very, very, very poised. I like the fact that wrestlers are very poised, like with their striking, because they know that if they miss one target, right, if they miss that specific target that they're seeking, they could potentially get knocked out, right? Not so much that they aren't good enough, but again, when you're a poised puncher, you're making sure that you accurate that there's a certain amount of accuracy that comes into hitting your opponents, right? And if he misses that target, he knows that because he doesn't move as fast as somebody who's main martial arts, boxing, or Muay Thai, there's a very, very big likelihood that he could be susceptible towards receiving a counter shot. And yes, was very, very. Mark Madsen throughout the fight landed great shots, especially when he was on the ground, being able to just pound his opponent, being able to just pound his opponent, being able to just pound his opponent, being able to just pound his opponent. Right? And these are the little details that I pay attention to when I'm dissecting and analyzing fights. Right? Because when you have somebody as special as Mark Madsen, he's main martial arts wrestling, two-time Olympic silver medalist. He didn't win gold, but he almost won at the highest level in wrestling. All the world's highest competition for sports, he won an Olympic silver medal. So you have to give the man a lot of respect. Number one. And number two, I would like to call somebody like Mark Madsen just fights with a sense of eagerness. Is from Denmark. Denmark. It's a smaller country in Europe compared to other countries. It's way smaller than the United States of America. And because he's a white man from Denmark, he's already fighting a more. He already has more to prove because you have so many accomplished white fighters throughout Europe, white fighters throughout America. Right? You have accomplished white fighters such as Conor McGregor. He's European. You have accomplished white fighters such as Brock Lesnar. He's let me not say European because Europe is a continent, but he's Ireland. That's like me saying, like that's basically me saying Conor McGregor is European and Brock Lesnar is American. But Europe and America aren't the same. America is a country within North America. Europe is a continent that's filled with multiple countries in Europe. So please, I'm not about spreading. I'm very. I take a lot of pride in what comes out of my mouth. I take a lot of pride in my words. I just want to make sure that I'm speaking sense while my subscribers are listening to me. And I feel like, yeah. So you have somebody who's a white Irish guy by the name of Conor McGregor. You have a white American gentleman by the name of Brock Lesnar. White American man such as Chuck Liddell. And now you have a white Danish man by the name of Mark Madsen. He has a lot to prove. He has a sense of he's very prideful of his country. And he just wants to fight. Now let's get to Clay Guida. Very experienced in the UFC, right? But this fight that I was watching him and Marcus Ariano, Mark Madsen, he's not so much stiff. He's just a very poised fighter. Because he looks tight, but he moves. He's very, 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 very quick. All right, very, very quick. So what you have to say to those quick fighters, okay, he looks it's not that he looks stiff, he just looks tight, but he moves. Clay Guida, he's not as quick and he doesn't move as fast as Mark Madsen, right? His style is still effective, and they kind of fight the same. They fight the same. They fight the same a little bit. I'm just from a aesthetic standpoint, like they both have the same posture. Mark Madsen's just more quicker and faster, but Clay Guida is just his movements are a bit more slower, right? But they're both tight. They're both compact punches. Only difference between Mark Madsen and Clay Guida is that Clay Guida has more of an emphasis on trying to hit you standing up with his stand up, right? And I don't see, yeah. So throughout those rounds, Clay Guida, he was just landing the jab, landing the right hand, but landing it crisp though, landing it crisp, right? And yes, Mark Madsen is a great striker. He's strong. Clay Guida, he puts an emphasis to hit his target. Just look at the way how he threw those punches against Marcus Arellano, right? It was just crisp, it was precise, and like he did it like he threw those punches as if he wanted to win that fight, and that's what he was doing throughout the whole entire rounds. But my only concern about Clay Guida is, yes, there's been plenty of times where people strongly have been able to get you on the ground and submit you. I mean, and you have to succumb to the specific martial art that they're practicing while they had you on the ground, whether it was regular wrestling, regular Japanese jiu-jitsu, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But this Mark Madsen guy is very, very, very special. It's very special. Not only is he special, he represented his country in 2 Olympics, I believe. Maybe it was 3, 2008, 2012, 2016. Right, won numerous amount of won numerous amount of medals in world championships. So you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm Clay Guida, I'm experienced, but I cannot underestimate this guy, even though he's just started his UFC debut probably a couple of years ago. I have more experience in the UFC. He has a lot of international experience, right? And a lot of fighters who transition to any professional sport, whether they have experience at an amateur level, collegiate level, right? I'm not saying they all do tremendously well in the pros, but depending on the type of experience they were exposed to, it's going to play a huge factor in their performances as professionals. Especially if you had the experience against people from other countries, right? So you have boxing, which is a martial art that's respected all across the world. You have plenty of guys who transition to the pros, right? It's very interesting how with boxing, right, you have fighters that excel really well in amateurs and they transition to the pros and they do pretty well and they also end up doing well. We also have some guys who have the experience and national experience as an amateur, but they don't transition well into professionals. All right, now maybe that has to do with the politics of professional boxing, because even though boxing is real, none of it is fake, but maybe it's due to the training, maybe it's due to the negotiations of getting a contract that you want as a professional boxer. It's just a completely different way around compared to amateurs. But I noticed just from my years of my years in observation, just being around boxing, wrestling, and mixed martial arts, I noticed that a lot of fighters who have the experience as whether it was representing their country or them having experience at a collegiate level, whether it's wrestling or kickboxing, right? Like the amount of experience, if they have a certain amount of experience at an amateur or collegiate level, they end up transitioning to the pros really well. Dan Cormier, All-American wrestler, I believe Matt Hughes was a very successful boxer. Weeks, very successful wrestler, I know that Brock Lesnar has experience, even though he never won a championship. I remember the days when Brock Lesnar first started in the UFC around 2009. But you have to remember, in the early 2000s, Brock Lesnar was under WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. So even though the WWE isn't it's staged, but at the same time, all of these movements traveling all across the world to perform house shows or live events, whether it's on SmackDown or Raw, ECW, like all of these stuff, that plays to his muscle memory as well. So Clay Guida is going to have a very interesting fight because honestly, I think I like both fighters. You can't sleep on Clay Guida because he could punch and he has experience at the professional level. But this guy, Mark Madsen, has already developed a reputation at the professional level thus far. Yet, also, he has all of the international experience just from competing in the Olympics. Because I don't care who you are. If you compete in the Olympics and you medal, whether it's bronze, silver, gold, of course, gold is the absolute agenda, but you silver in any division. You're going against competition from all across the world, from various styles. You don't know how many guys, you don't know how many years of experience these guys who you're going up against have, under their arsenal. And you just have to adjust at that given moment, right? Because my uncle is Mark Breland, my uncle is Mark Breland, and, just when he was an amateur, it's one thing to compete at an amateur level from your region, right? And you can win the regional Golden Gloves. But when you start winning, you can even win the national Golden Gloves or the national amateur championships. But when you start traveling all across the world, you have to adjust to different styles. Now you're really testing waters. Now you're really giving yourself a challenge. Even when Mark really fought Sarah Connivive, right? So Sarah Connivive, the 1982 World Amateur Championships. Please check that out when you get a chance. My boxing fans, boxing people, mixed martial arts fans, mixed martial arts people, right? Mark really just had to adjust. Mark just had to adjust to the moment. He didn't know how many years of experience this guy had against him. He didn't know how many years of he didn't know how many years of just boxing he's had on his arsenal. But that's what makes the art of pugilism, and that's what makes mixed martial arts so interesting. The fact that you just have to adjust to any style that's given to you. And to that I say, I don't see Clay Guida winning this fight against Mark Madsen, only because I think Mark Madsen has too much international experience against Clay Guida. Right? None of them are underdogs. I just think that Mark Madsen isn't going to be. I just believe that Mark Madsen's style is going. It's just it's just suitable to win against Clay Guida. Just because if they go toe to toe in the striking department, I think Mark Madsen can exchange some pretty hard strikes. And I also see Mark Madsen getting a hold of Clay Guida. Clay Guida's a strong guy, but I just don't see him overcoming the challenge against Mark Dillon and Madsen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scrap Empire. Like, comment, subscribe to my content. Please leave down some comments please leave down comments below to let me know to inform me about any constructive criticism of my channel, any feedback. Greatly appreciated from you guys. I'm speaking with a bit more enthusiasm today, only because I just wanted to try something new. So, like, comment, subscribe. Email me scrapempire1@gmail.com for any business inquiries. I greatly appreciate all of you guys watching my content, and please subscribe, and I'll be posting more videos soon. Bye bye, everybody.